That's great.
I did have the first. Cheryl, is that you?
I just had to get my...
It is. I'm calling in. I'm going to need to hang up in a few minutes and call back in during the course of the meeting.
Okay, that shouldn't be a problem.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm turning you up to full volume here. And these are both on, so you should be able to hear the people around the table. Okay, very good. You're the only one on the line right now, Cheryl.
Cheryl,
okay, thank you.
This is Rick. I read your email.
Okay, thank you. If you could keep that email in mind when I'm not on the phone.
Absolutely.
I think I printed it out. We've got a copy here too, Cheryl.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'll take one.
Oh, that's affordable. That's affordable. I only have one.
I'll take that too.
Yeah, there's one for everybody. All right.
I'll take one.
Let's get the papers out here.
Yeah. There's Martha. Martha, I did the phone call out to you. The first try, too.
Do you want me to burn a couple copies of her email? Or can we just read that? I didn't read that.
Toss these down here, guys, this way in case you get them too.
This is your housing summary. So you
have this.
put it in the middle then.
Over 4.
Dave stopped in. He had to leave. Nicole's here. Suzanne here. Cheryl's on the phone. So is this all of us then?
Yes, because Ross is not able to call in either.
Okay.
Make a motion that are we called to order?
Yes,
I make a motion.
12:04.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the March 2nd meeting.
Any discussion?
No. No discussion. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
None opposed? And no abstentions.
I'd like to make a motion, if I may, to move the discussion under new business up under 2, because I think that may require most of our time and attention today.
I second that motion.
Any discussion on the move?
Could we move it under 3? I mean, I don't think 3 is going to take a long time, is it, Mary Jo?
I'm fine with moving it under 3.
Okay.
I change my motion.
Amend your motion.
Amend my motion to remove new business under 3.
I'll second that motion. I'll second that motion.
Okay. All?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Shut up.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so Limewood is the senior housing. There's 2 senior housing complexes in Old Lyme, Limewood and Ryfield. Limewood is the one that you see on Boston Post Road. There's 24 units. It's HUD housing, federal. The other one is Ryfield, which is just about half a mile down the road, but you can't see it. You have to go down a road to get to the area. They're mostly financed through the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, CHFA. So it's a little different process. And they're run by Shoreline Affordable Housing. I don't communicate with the management of Ryfield as much as I do with Limewood. Limewood's very good about reaching out to me. Before COVID, I would go there and meet the residents in their community center and help them with the programs that I help with in general. And we've stayed in touch throughout COVID as well. So they reached out to me because they also have some units in Saybrook Village. and they are making a request from Saybrook for some COVID funding, and so they wanted to reach out to us as well. So there's a couple of different items that they requested. The first one was about a dog park, possibly enclosing an area to have a place for the residents to go, and it would also provide outdoor space, congregation, outside, and kind of socialization to minimize some of the effects of isolation that we've been talking about with seniors. But I did speak with a member of the board today, and the dog park is not 100% a go yet because of other issues around dogs, liability, and equal access to everybody because not everyone has a dog. So some of the other things that they talked about would be just improving their outdoor space in general, landscaping, benches, picnic tables, outdoor gathering areas, to get people out of the house more. They also talked about ADA compliance, ramps and other things to bring their buildings up to code, paving, because that can lead to issues with accessibility as well. But then then the big one came at the end, which was, I don't even want to say the S word, septic. So they're having issues with their septic system and the leaching fields, and they don't even they're looking into what the problems are. They have to do frequent pump outs. I said, well, I'll bring it up. But, we're talking about septic sewer, other infrastructure issues, and I'm not sure, again, how that fits into the overall picture. But I have them on our spreadsheet. And I said that when the time came, if we did have an application process, that we would reach out to them just like we will to anyone else, and they can be in the pool with everyone else. But I just wanted to bring it to the committee's attention.
Glad they're aware.
Yeah. I think like I said, because of the Saybrook, each town is in a different place in the process.
Do they specify an amount that they're after?
Well, the initial amount for the dog park, which was the first request, was maybe $5,000. But then today, when I spoke with a board member, it's definitely more than that. So again, it depends. If you're talking about landscaping, some picnic tables and benches, that's a couple thousand. If you're talking septic, I don't even want to estimate how much that might be. Yeah. And ADA compliance, they didn't have an estimate for me on that. So I wanted to put it in the pot.
So under HUD housing, who is responsible for the maintenance of that?
They have a management company that manages all of their property.
But is it federal, state, local?
Well, it's HUD, which is federal, but they have, I think the board might be a nonprofit board. Because I specifically asked, it was Bill Archer, and I said, Bill, are you a nonprofit? Yes, they are. So maybe the management company or the board of trustees that oversees it might be
And
a nonprofit.
HUD paying payments, the rental payments.
That's subsidized by HUD.
Yeah.
So being a New London girl, who's, government, HUD came in and put in tons of housing in New London in the 60s, but now they have various agencies in town that handle it. And of course, they just took down one of the high-rises.
Right.
But maintenance comes into play as to, and I think there's a City of New London Housing Authority, I think, that handles the issues at those places.
We don't have a housing authority in Old Lyme, of course.
I know that, but it would seem to me that somewhere along the line they should be.
I think what they do there, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think they have, the board has a company that does all of the lawn mowing and the routine maintenance. I think there's a company that they pay to do that. That's the way I remember that.
Condominium fee, HOA fees?
I'm assuming that there is some fee that's somehow it's paid, whether there's an allocation.
I'm just trying to think of.
Yeah, I don't know how it's done.
Thanks.
We were last night board meeting, we talked about tax basis, so Lyme, Ryefield, and even the whole property, they are not real 501c3s. They are designated for the sector, under housing,
Subsidized housing?
title, yeah. And so I think it's the Lymewood, it's federal, all their funding to create the facility and to underwrite a lot of the rental units goes through them. They have to submit, and I think it's only the board, and I think there's only, who's the one? Anyway, I think they have a board, and I think one of the people on the board, I don't know if it's paid or not, is runs the facility day to day.
Management,
And
yeah.
as part of that, he hires maintenance guys to mow, to replace refrigerators and all that other kind of stuff. But all of those, the budget, is put, and they have their own, reporting requirements to whoever funds it. So their budget has to be approved by them because it has to show how many units are low income and all the expenses are as well. So anything really kind of figures in on that approval of that, of the Fed, the state, or whoever, but they run it themselves differently from Ryefield because Ryefield is owned by Payola, but he also got funding, a different kind of funding, and I don't know, you see the federal, state for each one. And he has a lighter requirement to prove, and he has a lot more invested in there personally. And the annual maintenance agreement is with his son. It was last time I knew it was and his son has a maintenance company that does all his own paving, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. But it's still a company that oversees that. It's not just him personally. It's Shoreline Affordable Housing, and they have a board of directors as well.
Right. So same type of thing. You have to file paperwork and all that stuff, and they're required to keep reserves and for capital improvements and things like that. So it's all very, overseen by both. But they're real restricted on what they can keep for reserves to spend on capital or all that kind of stuff. It's not been an issue, especially with language, because they're less, I don't want to say worse financial position, but they're more tightly controlled as to what they can do versus money. And so that's why we tax the taxpayers.
And maybe we need to separate infrastructure or basics against mitigating the effects of isolation, which is not something that...
So basically, when we get the application process going, they're going to have to fill out if they want to do all three things, and then we'll consider.
That's exactly what I told them.
Great.
Ken, is it fully occupied now?
Yes. Oh, yes.
And
The
that's-
waiting list.
There's waiting lists at both places.
Absolutely.
And how many?
24 units in Limewood. Some of them are single bedrooms, some are double bedrooms, so slightly more than 24 people. Ryefield's different because their numbering system is different. You can never quite tell, like they're skipping numbers on the numbering. But I would say a similar number of units.
4 units per facility.
Yeah, of course.
A, B, C, D per
Pod.
No, Ryfield is 3. It's A, B, and C. Yes.
Okay.
I know for sure. And then Limewood is 4 buildings with 6 per building.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great.
Thanks.
You're next.
Mike Poliano sends his welcome, sends his regrets also that he couldn't be here in person, but he hopes to in the future. But he asked me to present what the Affordable Housing Commission is planning. They're working on the specifics, but they will be requesting of our committee some support for affordable housing. If you've been listening to their workshops, they had one. I think they're having another one. It's pretty.
That was super.
Yeah, it's very informative. They did a great job.
Is that the one with the river cog?
Yes. They were there too. Yes, that's right. Because River Cog is funding part of the effort. They also they received a grant to help them complete the statutory requirements, which are due this June. The town of Old Lyme is required to have an affordable housing plan, and it has to be updated every 5 years. So they're working on that also. But their commission has determined that Old Lyme would be best served to improve the affordable housing numbers in town by refurbishing and repurposing existing properties, either residential or commercial, for affordable housing, and they call that adaptive reuse. Is that the same one? Anyway, thank you, Rick. Mike has shared what adaptive reuse, the advantages of that in the second bullet that I handed out. and that it qualifies for ARPA funding, and that they're in the process of drafting a proposal to request funding to acquire one or more town-owned or bank-owned available properties and refurbish that property as qualified affordable housing for sale or rent to an occupant, it might be occupants, that would also be qualified by income. A suitable property has yet to be identified. Then he followed up with their metric from the poll that they took of their first workshop, that 89% agreed that Old Lyme needs more housing options, including affordable, and 76% could support an investment by the town in adaptive reuse. And when Mike comes to speak with us, he'll have more data on that front, but they will be coming with obviously a sizable request. And I can't remember if I had put that on the spreadsheet.
I didn't remember seeing it.
Okay, we probably need to add that.
I'll put it as a placeholder
Okay.
for right now.
Okay. So keep that in mind as we go forward. Thanks.
Mary Jo, it's Cheryl.
Hey,
Can you hear
Cheryl.
me?
Yep.
Hi. We just want to make sure that Mike and Affordable Housing understand the timeline, that they would have to be sure if something happens. Am I correct in saying within 4 years, or whatever the timeline is? We want to make sure they understand that aspect of it.
You're correct. And as we said with the other issues, the application should detail specifically what the requirements are including the timeline.
Plus, until they pick a property and make a dollar request, we have no idea how much they're asking for or
That's
how
right.
much we can get.
Right.
Are they going to do that before we adjourn this committee in May or June?
They have to apply.
Yeah, I have to apply.
And also, is that the best use of funds? So you're talking about to buy one property to refurbish? How many properties are they talking about? For one family, two families?
Again, we may not give them all the money they're looking for.
Right.
We may help them.
Right.
Yeah, given that, and that's to be established yet by how we pigeonhole the.
Right.
Yeah, this doesn't indicate other grants they might be looking
Right.
for or anything.
Right.
It's just where they're at in the process to put on our spreadsheet so that we make sure we reach out to them.
But I think your discussion and some of the responses raises a good point. With some of these applications, when we get them, they should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Meaning that, I want $15,000, and this is, when George was here, he talked about this was my loss, you met the threshold, we have you sign off and attest to the fact that that's what happened. We give you the money, we're not as concerned about, I shouldn't say we're not concerned, but for some reason in the East Windsor case, they didn't worry that much about where it went because they had a document that said this loss really happened.
Right.
What I'm seeing here is this group has been formed. What they're doing is valuable to the community. But if they come with an application, I think the expectation would be, oh, so this is what you're going to do. This is where you bought the property, bought the land, whatever it is you did, and this is when you anticipate it being complete. So I'd have to say that. I think we'd have to make sure that their application stated that. So that's one of those cases we may go back and ask for more data.
Yep.
Just a thought.
Yep. I mean, it may be a deposit.
Right.
I don't know
Right.
the specifics. That's all I had on that.
So now we're at
New business. We'll move up, begin discussions of allocation of funds by category. Based on primarily what our discussions last week and then what Rick had sent out to us by email, I tried to
First
blow
grade
it up.
crayon.
very good.
What?
My first grade crayon.
It did a nice job.
I thought it was great. Oh, you printed it out.
I
spent
did.
10 minutes trying to find a
It's
flow
on
chart. I'm
everything.
like, you know what, screw this. I'm
Rick's
just gonna-
brain.
I got it. I mean, I got it. It looked like it.
Mary Jo, do you have a mark? Are we going to use that mark?
I have markers. I was thinking.
I've been waiting for this for years.
I have. You may use the marker because obviously I can't even take these up. But for Cheryl on the phone, Cheryl basically put the 4 categories of eligible uses of the ARPA funds up. Number one being for the provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenues due to the COVID-19 public health emergency relative to revenues collected in the most recent full fiscal year, or, as we've discussed, taking the standard allowance of up to $10 million, and in our case that would be $2.1 million. And basically virtually everything from the survey could be included, depending on how we structure the rules. We know we're waiting on a legal opinion on some of this, but it seems to me that we as a committee could certainly recommend that at the next town meeting, and I know Martha will have some input on that, that the town is informed that we are taking the 2.1, or the ARPA committee recommends taking the ARPA allocation as a standard allowance, which would allow us to use it for government services. And pretty much, as we said, anything could fall under that. If we are then using some of those funds to respond to the public health emergency, the second item, or its negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small business, and nonprofits, or aid to impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. Part of this is what we talked to George about, not the whole thing. This still allows for programs to be developed, such as behavioral health initiatives. But under George's expertise, he would be looking at revenue lost for primarily some of our nonprofits or associations that weren't open or couldn't hold their fundraisers during the pandemic. So the example I used last week was the Shoreline Community Center. I don't think I named them, but I know that they lost revenue during the pandemic. They weren't able to hold their fundraisers. They have a lot of rehab that building badly needs, and they also open that community center to the town for different opportunities, including the Soundview Commission meets there when the weather allows for it. So they have a painting initiative. I know they need to do some HVAC, I think some roofing. So they're pulling all of that together and will apply. So that's an example. That is not to say that an initiative to address the behavioral health concerns, which we've all talked about and value, and some of the isolation issues, couldn't be included in that. And that would be more of a program. But for the George piece, we need to put some parameters around that. I know George had indicated that another town used $10,000 for their application. So we could talk about that. We could put a cap on it, say $25,000, and see what we get. See what the applications show us. We don't have to cap it, but it certainly addresses the survey numbers that we got here too. Thank you. The next
Can I just add one thing to that?
Please, everybody.
This is Rick speaking. The one thing I wanted to add to this, the George piece is what I called it. If three businesses come to us and they all ask for ARPA funds, it's always been the case that ARPA, or the Act, requires us to document the lost revenue aspect. So that would allow us to make a determination between Company A, Company B, Company C, whether they get anything or whether they get up to a cap if we set it, or whatever the case may be. That's entirely different than if Lyman Service Bureau came to us and said, mental health is a real issue. It's been identified. It's covered under ARPA. It's fine. We have a program that we want to put up. There's no lost revenue there. It's the program. The program is $100,000 to provide XYZ for X period of time. So the committee, I think, has to make sure that we do want to have the George bucket, because I'm sure we're going to have nonprofits and businesses apply. Build a file defendable why Company A got X, why Company B got Y, and why Company C maybe got nothing. Right? We have to be able to defend that to the public. So that's the main thing I wanted to point out about the George bucket.
Right. Right, that's,
not excluding anything else.
that's an important distinction, I think. It needs to be made, is that whatever we decide, whatever we put on there for a cap, if somebody comes with a program, a viable program, we still have the latitude
Absolutely.
in the committee
to
do what it is we need to do with that particular program.
Absolutely.
I thought more too about, so Mary is LISB, which is not a department of the town, but it's money from the town.
Yeah, certainly as acts
You are always.
certainly acts as an agency in the town.
But I want to kind of follow up on what I talked about last meeting, which was the town department. So I spent a little time looking at the town of East Lyme as an example, and they have their ARPA committee is a subcommittee of the Board of Selectmen, and their minutes are posted. And their last minutes was like 56 pages long because they had a presentation from a company, but they're having the application just like the George process. And they're having the department heads of each department come to the ARPA committee and make a presentation. Parks and Rec, police, it could be social services, senior center. We've heard from some of those. We've heard a little bit from the senior center. Dave is representing the public works, the police.
Yeah.
But that's missing out, too, some of the other departments. It's missing out Parks and Rec. It's missing out maybe not health. Because then I was thinking, too, Ledgelight, even though it's not a department of the town, it is our health department. It is acting as an agent of the town.
It is.
So it makes it separate, I think, from a nonprofit or somebody else asking us for money. But how do we incorporate more of the town departments and functions into this process?
Well, I think that's part of the outreach, too.
Yeah.
I agree.
And that,
Well, I liked last meeting when Cheryl referred to the George grants as the economic recovery grant, because I do feel like that kind of puts those businesses, whether they're a nonprofit or a for-profit, into economic recovery.
Right.
That's different than fixing a problem or creating some new program or initiative,
Absolutely.
right?
Correct. For a business, we can't do that.
Right.
Right.
Can I add one other thing about that?
Yeah.
Mary Jo said a little bit earlier about it doesn't have to be 10,000. We could consider 25,000. If you do just in your head a very quick count of how many businesses are on Halls Road alone, we have a lot of businesses, and a lot of businesses suffered. So if the word is spread, as it should be, that we're doing economic recovery, 25,000 very quickly becomes 100,000 spent, or a huge chunk. So I'm going to have to hang up shortly. I would perhaps myself be interested in a lower cap, like a 10,000, because if a business starts planning for, I would like to get $25,000 in recovery funds, and then we come back to them and say, wow, we had too many people apply, we're actually only giving you 5,000 or 10,000. They have to go back to the drawing board on how, for themselves, they're not reporting to us, but how they plan to spend that money. It's kind of like dash totes.
yeah. So, Cheryl, it's Martha. So I was thinking...
I'm sorry?
It's Martha. I'm just letting you know who's talking.
Yeah. I know your voice, Martha.
I was thinking along the same lines, because I think all of our goals is to help as many people as possible. I thought about, after listening to George last week, and how he meets individually with some of these applicants if they don't get to a $10,000 mark. And I do agree, I think the 10,000 cap is a better number on this particular piece. But I'm okay if George went out and said, oh, they forgot about wages or something like that. But I wasn't really keen that he would just automatically go out and try to get them to 10.
Right, I agree.
Because if they only need $6,900, maybe then we can help another individual home business for $3,000.
Can I make a motion that we discuss the cap? Can I make a motion that we discuss this?
I don't think you need a motion
to get some
for
things
that.
done?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Second.
all right. So what are the thoughts on the lost revenue do we think we have a cap?
I think the cap should be something like $10,000. If you do $25,000, 4 times 25 is $100,000. So 40 businesses, you spend $1 million.
Does anybody think there should not be a cap?
Dave Roberge, who's not here.
Well, no.
I'm just saying he left us
His issue
know.
was putting a specific percentage of the total funds in each of the 4 buckets. I don't think he had an issue with the cap on the economic recovery. We're talking just the economic recovery.
That's all we're talking about.
So my thought, or my motion would be that we put $250,000 into that program for George.
Economic recovery grant.
Economic recovery grant, a cap of $250,000 with a cap on any individual application of $10,000.
Nobody has any problems with the cap concept.
No,
Right.
at least I don't.
Right.
But the 250, I think, is arbitrary.
The 250, I
Is
think.
that 25%? Is that where you're coming from? Or I am curious how you got.
2.1, right?
Yeah. So.
250,000?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it would be 500, right. The math guy, the finance guy up here. So,
That would be-
how did you come up with the 250,000? I'm curious.
I was just thinking over a cup of coffee.
All right.
So you're saying 20,
I thought that would be,
that would be 25 people at $10,000 apiece, right?
that would be 25 at 10, but I felt that, from our survey, we saw that a lot of people didn't always say that they had too many economic concerns, individuals. So I'm thinking that, yes, I really want that small business person to be helped, but I also don't want George digging around trying to say, oh, I had to have an extra, I didn't have garbage picked.
What if we allocated 25% of ARPA towards business nonprofits?
Which is what?
5.
Which is
I don't know. Has anyone seen a list of all the businesses in Old Lyme that applied for PPP loans?
No.
Because it's huge. Huge. So if all those businesses apply for 10,000, we will.
Yeah, I mean,
we
the
also.
application
is going to ask them to prove hardship or
Well,
something.
we also can put some caveats if they got PPE loans.
we
Do
can.
they qualify for ARPA?
Yeah.
Right.
Your application will be considered, put some language in that just,
They got PPP.
but you put some language in that says, up to $10,000, proof of loss must be provided, any PPP money or other money that
Somebody who didn't get PPP, in my opinion, should.
may impact our decision.
I agree.
I would think it's priority.
I
It can be part of the evaluation
Yes,
process.
I'm not knocking anybody who's just PPP.
But they should know that.
In particular, that is.
They should know that as part of the application.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You can't lose on only daycare.
So what are we thinking as far as, so now we kind of get down to the down and dirty, which is, we could put no dollar numbers from a top level and put a $10,000, and still put a $10,000 cap on that.
Right.
And then we could see what the fallout is.
We could get so many applications, we realize we're giving
What we I think need to be prepared for, though, is because I clearly have heard from everybody who's communicated to me, everybody who's presented, and everybody who's commented on this committee is, I don't think anybody has the thought that this is going to be 100% of ARPA, right?
No.
It can't be.
It can't be.
No.
It certainly cannot be. So I do think we have to be prepared on the committee level
To cap
for
it.
what is our cap that we are willing to allocate.
And maybe we look at that, maybe we arbitrarily say $250,000 at the committee level, lay the rest of it out, see what we get, and then from the applications, we say 10,000 up to $250,000.
Right. We may not make our cap decision until we get our.
Until we see the applications.
But my only point of going back and forth on this is, if we put out a $10,000 cap, do we have a problem if we come back and we just can't afford $10,000?
Right.
Only 8.
We can only do 8, exactly.
We word it very carefully,
Up to.
Up to.
Up to $10,000.
Up to.
And put right in it, based upon the number of applicants
Right.
and PPE money, et
Exactly.
cetera, et cetera, et
And
cetera.
then put that,
Exactly.
like, it's in the application.
Right, Sarah, these are your bullet points.
Exactly.
Now your name,
Because
Yeah.
Unlike
what they did in Enfield.
Right.
And you may not get your 5,000, but maybe you'll get 4,100.
Well, let me tell you, in the East Lyme example, I keep going back.
Yeah,
to,
no, they've got.
They did not cap. They did not indicate to the applicant that there was a cap.
Yeah.
We asked for 29,000. Are we going to get 29,000? I highly doubt it. But there was no cap, so you have to put something. You have to ask for an amount
Oh, I mean,
and
we could
itemize
tell
it.
people that the grants will be no larger than 10,000.
Right, we can tell them right up front.
Yeah, I say you're better off telling them because then they can tailor their request to that.
And most of the applications I looked at across the country do indicate that.
And then we did, there was a thing in the East Windsor application that said, in the end, some reference to PPE.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, there's
Yes,
some
there
reference to it. I think we should be a little more stern than that.
I don't think we should preclude somebody from.
No.
But, you know,
We should say show evidence of.
I applied for a PPP loan with OASB.
Yeah.
There was no evidence of hardship required. You had to show your payroll for a period of time.
Yeah, from day to day.
And your
But you continued to pay
utility.
people, and you didn't lay people off.
And PPE.
Oh, people did though, you know, but like this was right. And so then the final report had to show how many employees you had at the beginning and how many
At the end, right.
But it was really best to help you meet your payroll and pay your utilities.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
It was not asking for hardship, it was assuming
No, it was
hardship
not,
really.
right.
So,
And this
so a lot
wasn't
of
even
businesses
on the table
applied.
then. That's all we
Yeah, but
had
the other side of that
in
is,
2020.
the other side of that is, folks who either didn't have access to that or didn't do that,
Or it ran out.
or
Ran out.
Because that first tranche went so quickly.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, I think, would have wanted to apply.
Yeah.
Or maybe did apply. They didn't even have the acumen. They didn't either have the acumen to apply, they didn't have contact with a lender to apply.
Right.
Or they just didn't
Right.
Yeah.
get approved.
I think
But that will also help us when we make the decision, if
Yeah.
they did get PPE and we can't give them 10, I'm sorry.
everybody
Does
got
the math.
PPE. Yes.
Anyway, you know what I'm saying.
I know.
That
So they
gives
get a
us
mask.
That gives us a little bit more leeway. It's like, okay,
Right.
Right.
this person didn't qualify.
And to Mary's point, if they did get that money, then at least we know that their wages and stuff were covered.
For those-
Now their loss was experienced through some other mechanism,
I think
which we can lend credence to.
you saw the list.
Folks, I have to hang up. I'm on board with everything you guys are saying, so I'll
Bye,
get
Cheryl.
back on the phone
Bye,
as soon as I
Cheryl.
can. Bye. Bye.
So what we could also do is we could also take the survey, which has 11 categories, and the categories of the survey were intentionally not the 4 allowable expenses because your average person's not going to be able to understand where they fall under these, right? So we don't have to, but we could take the 11 categories and we could say, okay, where do they best fit here?
That would help
Get
me.
your marker, Rick. Let's
Yeah.
go.
So we could do that. And then as we're doing this, we've got this virtually anything can fall in here, and then we have the essential workers for premium pay. Well, the Ambulance Association maybe didn't have premium pay, but they wore out their stretcher, so they want a stretcher. Well, that doesn't neatly fit here, but it would fit under here, under the standard allowance, which we could call anything.
Right.
But, all right, so let's go.
Number 1, start with a
So
ton.
this is the easiest, I think, in my opinion. Infrastructure, right, is right here.
Yes, number 1.
Number 1. So this is when I say number 1, we're going to go by our ranking. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah,
Okay.
1 infrastructure.
Okay, number 1 ranking. So small business.
Oh, Rick, just write infrastructure. We're never going to remember what number
Okay.
that was.
You're going to have to read my writing.
Do you want me to write?
Yeah, how can you do that?
By the time we get to number 10,
It's bad
Oh,
writing.
you did the 1.
It's like a chicken.
Hey, I could read your flow chart.
thank you, Mary. All right, what was number 2?
Much better. So small business and nonprofit, in my opinion, could fall under either George, if that's how they apply, or nonprofit, maybe business, but nonprofit could also fall under
But I think,
number 3.
I think that if we're talking the economic recovery grants with George, nonprofits can apply for that too. So
Absolutely.
So put it,
So my point is it could be in both. It could
It could be in both
probably
depending
all
upon the
three.
application.
It could probably be in all 3.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
so
Most likely it would fall under 2, it could fall under 3.
let's placehold it at 2.
Yeah.
and it also goes here?
And no, a nonprofit, Mary. Let's just put each one on one for now.
Okay.
Nonprofit is number 3.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
But how was it worded? It was.
Okay, we would have to, because this is where you ran into trouble, I think, last time, where you kind of said, wait a minute, I'm going to...
Economic recovery.
Right, I get it.
Doing an initiative.
So, I mean, let's do this. And then, you're right, it does fall under that, and it falls under the other one, too.
It could fall under any of them.
Yeah.
Well, the only one it doesn't really fall under is the infrastructure, right?
Not true.
How
What
does
if
it
she
fall
needed-
under
What if she
premium
needed
pay?
new broadband?
Okay.
What if they need new internet? They don't have the right.
I don't view what we're talking about right now as a problem, by the way. I think it more shows the flexibility that we have, that many of these requests, with the exception of something that is clearly infrastructure or something that is clearly lost revenue,
Right.
we have,
Here's portable.
it's very portable. It's very fungible between our buckets.
So it's financial assistance to nonprofits that provided relief and services to Old Lyme residents during the pandemic. That sounds like economic recovery.
It sure does to me.
Okay, yeah. It
All right,
doesn't
leave it
sound
there.
like financial assistance to nonprofits. That's all it says. So that sounds like economic recovery to me. Number 2.
Yeah.
Okay, number 3.
All right.
So, mental health.
I think that goes under number 1.
I think it goes under number 1.
Yep.
I do too. As would your town office requests, department requests.
Right.
It's not on the survey.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yep,
Okay.
But government services falls under here,
absolutely.
Yeah, but what number is government services?
5.
number 5.
Look at her, she didn't even have to move.
Suzanne will take a picture of this
Broadband.
for you.
The last one. But again, broadband could easily come back later and under number 1.
Absolutely.
It absolutely could.
But this is the most likely category, and then we can move from there,
Pick one.
Correct.
you know.
Back to my ones and zeros.
Quapping. Number 7, premium pay.
Obviously, number 3.
I would go with number 3.
Good choice, Phil.
Number 8, assistance to families. How did that?
That was
would be
under number 1.
That's definitely number 1, I think.
Financial assistance to only families and households having difficult recovery. Okay, difficult.
And we still have money to help those folks in our
Yeah,
fund.
we still have money to help those folks.
It's not a business, it's not a nonprofit. I think it would fall
Yeah, it's
under
number
1.
Number 1.
plainly.
It would be, yeah. But I think some of the criteria for number 2 would also have to, what was your loss, stuff like that, as part of the application.
Yeah, because it does say assistance to households,
Right.
specifically in number 2.
Right.
I don't know, now I'm thinking it should go to number 2, Mary.
No, that's fine.
I think sheet notes.
Yeah, I sort of thought, as long as it
You
has,
think assistance to families should go under number 2?
Yeah, I can't read all of number 1.
Doesn't it say that?
It does say assistance to families.
Individuals?
This is to households, husbands, not.
Yeah, I do think it should go into number 2 now.
Well, then a household, I consider a household individual, because the kids aren't applying.
Okay, you're right. So should we move from here?
Just cross it out.
got a cross out.
That's okay.
Do you have your Sharpie eraser?
But that would get further to Phil's point, which is even if George isn't
Yeah.
doing it, we could
Right.
still use this
Same form.
No, George.
Even in the form,
What was your extra child care?
even in the mod 1 form that I made, I put a category.
Early childhood.
Phil, could we please get a whiteboard? I'm a real
Early childhood.
You can apply in the ARPA fund.
There's another one that could be under, probably 1 or 2.
I agree.
It does.
I think,
Actually, we should get.
what would you call early childhood? I mean, what would we define, what would fall under that is what I'm talking about? What would early childhood be? Like we lost daycare?
Daycare.
Our daycare, we almost lost it. Still struggling. It's the only daycare center in town.
Yeah.
But
do that.
But there's also impact to the kids that weren't in daycare, right? Who had daycare?
What's the definition in the
Dave showed me how to use.
And maybe it's not just childcare.
Well, it's early childhood.
I think it's number 2.
I should be able to use that.
Investment in early childhood care and education. So that sounds like daycare providers, but also additional
Yeah.
education, early childhood. So you thinking number 2?
I think number 2.
I would have said one.
I was thinking one,
Because I think that.
I agree with you.
It's an investment.
Because that's a larger, there's more latitude involved in that.
Exactly. I think
fiscally.
number
I
one
think
gives it broader latitude.
gives you broader latitude to do
How
stuff.
do I quantify what my child lost in education that may need some supplemental help through LISD or?
It's easier to say, I pay $200 a week for childcare.
Right, rather than say, oh, sorry, you're at $10,100. Your kid doesn't get.
Okay.
So.
Number 10, bringing visitors to businesses.
Oh, that's nice.
I think that's a one as well. I'm trying to see premium pay.
One and two, I think.
So
Hospitality and business, impacted
Where does it say?
industries.
Where does it say?
Tourism, travel, and hospitality.
Yeah, but that again goes back to the
apply for
quantified.
that, right? I think we would be getting this from the economic development
The
commission.
marketing
right, to
folks.
apply to that.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
do they have a loss? No, not necessarily, but I think it's absolutely in the flavor of what we're trying to do. I think it's more.
I think it's a one.
Number one.
Again, I'm looking at number 2 as a narrower category in
Well,
that.
you're going to show me a stack of paper that defends why you're getting this.
Right.
So this really is tourism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so where is it going?
I'm saying
I
one.
think one.
I think one.
Okay.
Now, tourism, since it could potentially benefit a multitude of stakeholders across the spectrum, maybe we would decide they're not subject to the same cap as the business. Maybe. I'm not saying
Right.
we do, but
Tourism is more broad.
I think everyone's already, if let's say, tourism or whoever, daycares, whatever, file number 2 and get nothing per George, you can only take those that are rejected and see if we link them, they can.
if it's justifiable,
Yeah, that's I think we want to be able to do
Absolutely.
absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
to Jen's
Agreed.
point, we're trying to get something to everybody.
Agreed.
that. Right.
Yeah. That we can.
Um,
That's allowed by the rules.
Number
It is.
11, affordable housing.
One.
One.
I think definitely one, right?
We even have a commission for it, so yeah,
They can apply.
they can apply.
So this helps us to get our percentages.
I think this is really good. I think this is really good.
Are we doing percentages?
Well, this is the first.
Thanks a lot.
This is the first cut at meeting the 4 criteria.
It really helps to put them in their bucket.
Yeah, but now that you know that, we know that some of these will kind of shove, as Nicole just pointed out, and as we talked about earlier, some of these will move back and forth a little bit. But that second category, the Economic Recovery Act, the George piece, will sort of has a ceiling, a limit, and certain criteria it has to meet before it's approved. The first category is much more
wider.
affordable and fungible. The infrastructure one should be quantifiable no matter who.
I think
What
you're
are you going to do with the money?
I think you're right.
Here you go. And then I think the middle category where number 7 is, some of these can, from number 1, can kind of move in and out of that area depending upon what they land on. And if we pluck them out of 2, maybe they fit under 1.
So, looking at a couple of questions. So looking at number 4, mental health, which is at the end. Really, the question was worded mental health and public health. So, like the legislate request could come out of.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
But and the question I have is government services. So we're talking about the different town hall departments possibly?
Yes.
But what about some of those government services projects or needs potentially could be?
Yes, I'm one of those guys.
Yeah, they could be.
I'm
okay.
Like
Yeah,
internet,
government-
broadband.
Yeah,
But that specifically says water, sewer, and broadband. It doesn't say affordable housing.
No, I'm talking about.
He's talking
I
about,
don't think we have to worry about, I don't think we're planning to try to pigeonhole people. I think we're just trying to get, right now, like an eyeball on,
Okay.
to me, this is really pretty telling, right? I mean, I think this is where
Our town.
the town.
What they said.
I think the town is
Yeah.
probably 25, 25, 25, and 25 is probably not going to be realistic, right?
Right.
So we shouldn't probably put it out there that it's going to be 25, 20. We should, right? We should leave that open.
Front end loaded.
right,
I think last.
You also have to look that number 4
I don't
has
know
the
how
number
we can
one
do that.
voted thing on it.
How we can do what?
How we assign percentages right now.
I don't think we do.
I don't think we do. I think we do it based
I
upon
think we don't.
application.
Right, because certainly like a request from you to make meeting access more accessible really could be here.
Right.
That's because it mentioned remote work and improving ability to remote work, stuff like that. So it would be hard to know, like.
Right. And I think that would be based upon the applications. I think the second category is pretty clear, needs a limit, needs to tell folks, up to, and here's what you need to do to apply. I think the infrastructure stuff is pretty clear. I think some of if I was to do the application process, would fall under the latter category, but also some of it, well, mine would probably more likely than not fall under the last category.
So the reason that this all becomes important is, at this level, as far as siloing these, is if we go out with a $10,000 cap for the lost revenue, which I think is smart to put a cap on that at whatever the committee decides, I don't think we would want to limit and set the same cap mindset for
the other category.
For what the two things that you two just spoke about, that
Yep.
both Phil and Mary just spoke about. And I don't think we should. Let's say that, that infrastructure was $200,000. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Well, let's take a look at it.
Right. And of that imaginary $200,000 figure, when we're done, we look at the sum of the whole, what we have left, and you say, sorry about your $200,000.
Maybe we can't do 200, but
Here's 30 grand.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
I just think we need to keep in mind the fact that, yes, there might be more of the list on those ones, but infrastructure was number 1. It's weighted more heavily because it was number 1.
And those projects are usually more expensive.
Right.
Exactly.
And they tend to consume more money.
Nicole has a comment.
Well, exactly what Mark said.
Okay.
If WPCA comes in and says, we need $3 million to put that whole project together, and maybe Tim says, yeah, I want to put all that money to that.
I think that's why.
The committee can only the committee can only
decide what's appropriate in the bucket.
right, and ultimately we're not going to be the ones approving and writing the checks. We
Right.
can only
And to my
recommend.
comment on the WPCA issues, I think it's fair to ask the WPCA what part of that $3 million bucket that you're looking at is realistic, because we have to share that money. Is it, for example, do we put in some money to help people cut off their septic so they can, remember that was that little surprise piece? I mean, do we consider, hey, WPCA?
Completely allowable under
completely
final rules.
allowable.
Again, what's the timeline? We have to spend the money by what year, and are we going to be at that process in the sewers because it's all been delayed?
You know what?
They keep saying, next year, next
You
year,
can't
next
turn
year.
off your septic until you've got the sewer.
That may kill that.
Exactly.
But at least we're doing due diligence.
Yeah.
At least we're responding to the survey applicants saying, we'd like to do something. We do see it's environmentally supportive. We're under orders to do this, by the
But
way.
I think that pushes us, Mary Jo,
Well-
a little bit, and I don't want to do it, but I think that pushes us a little bit to arrive at a cap for number 2. Because if
You mean total dollar?
Yeah,
Total dollar.
yeah, because I think what's going to happen
Suck up all.
is if they push the
That's why
septic issue, then that squeezes the rest of the sponges.
Well, they can take it all.
Or they could take it off. You know how much it's going to be to do all of this crap? I'll just give them the money and we'll move on.
Let me put this to you.
Pardon my French.
I absolutely believe that there could be a program proposed to address the rampant mental health issues that we have, not only in the country, but specifically in O-line. That could be a $2 million,
Right.
literally, that could be a $2 million proposal spread out over, that is a viable, justifiable program, I'm sure. Just as the $3 million is the real number or whatever it is, there is nothing that compels us to put all the eggs in one basket, and frankly, it's not within our mission statement to do so. I don't think we want to alienate anybody,
No.
but I certainly think we need to make sure that we are true spreading this out and helping.
And
The spirit of it. And I think you're right. I think at the end of the day, it's the recommendation of the committee floats across the selectmen's desk.
Absolutely.
And they decide what they're going to do with it. We made our best recommendations.
And they're going to have to justify
And they'll
that
have,
decision.
we've done our due diligence and we've done our piece of business.
Right.
They're going to have to show us
Right.
why they opted in.
Right.
Just as we've done our due diligence, the Board of Selectmen,
I
Board of
agree.
Finance,
So now I don't feel so bad
going to
about
have to
it.
justify their choice.
As soon as that came up, I'm kind of going like, well, that's flips the corner off.
Yeah,
and
and if
makes
this has to go to town meeting, that's a whole other level as well.
But does it have to go to town? Good.
It can go to town meeting if you, and Matt, you're here, so you can, but basically it sort of goes under my old business stuff, but basically what we'd like to do is go to town meeting and say, look, we're taking it as the standard allowance, and this is what we're seeing as far as buckets. You can, and we could break it down like this and carve out the George piece and say, basically to be divided amongst these projects based on application. And then we go from there. But
I like that idea.
no Board of Selectmen, we're all agreed. We're not going for little individual things.
Good.
We're okay with Ledge Light, we're okay with George doing those two little things. But after that, we just want one broad town meeting. We're taking the money, here's the money, this is what we're doing with it. And I can't imagine a majority of this population saying, well, I don't want you to do all that with that money. I mean, I can't believe that they would come up and start balking.
The other piece of that, Martha, is what Mary Jo and I just went a little back and forth about. On the other end, if, let's say, the Board of Selectmen decide to do something else, we've already shown them the spirit and intent of what we are doing. And I think that would resonate with the town populace. So I think that's actually a very good idea.
Well, and I'm naive enough and also confident enough in the process that we're putting that, hey, shoot your arrows at me at a town meeting. I mean, the facts are what the facts are. I mean, that's okay. I mean, you may not agree with me, but
here's what we did, and here's how we got here.
Yeah.
And this is part of our presentation. This is what we did. This is our process. This is why we came out with it.
Rick's thing is the first slide.
That will really instill confidence in me.
Yeah, you're right. Show me the money.
I think it's something from the Learning Center.
So I think what we do need to do is to carve out the small business nonprofit application stuff for George.
Okay. Now, I have not spoken to him.
I have news on that's next, but let's do this.
Are we done with this, or do we know?
Yes, great job.
I
So
think
I think we have to make a motion, I think, on that one, because that sort of leads to George.
I make a motion that for the item number 2, what we've referred to as the loss recovery business nonprofit George bucket, carries a cap of up to $10,000 per qualified applicant.
Second.
Third.
Any discussion on that? One observation I'd like to make is that I'm glad we found a spot for, and there may be few, individual requests from impacted households, other than referring them to the existing sources of assistance.
Yeah, good point.
I have a question about George and what we're asking him to do, because the dialogue since he was here is different than I expected. I expected that he was going to take care of the application process for small business and nonprofits, regardless of what the application or the request is for. And that it wouldn't be just tied to lost revenue. It would be whatever small business or nonprofit.
He will only do proof of loss.
I totally missed that.
Yes.
You don't have to see which one qualifies.
Yeah, he's the filter for that. I thought he was pretty clear about that.
Yeah, that he will only, because that's all he can document.
We did get a little messed up, I thought, last meeting. I was confused when I left here, which is why I needed visual aids this time. But it doesn't mean that we can't consider, seeing how he does with this, enlarging his scope, if we decide we want that. But for now, this is
Well,
what we
what's
voted
your
on.
sense, though, if we look at the universe of applications from nonprofits and small business, are the vast majority of them going to be lost revenue, or is there a huge mass of them out there that he's not even going to touch? In which case, he's only going to...
They don't qualify. A business that wants a new roof doesn't qualify.
The application is basically for lost revenue. And what they do with that lost revenue, if they get the grant, they could spend $10,000 on a new roof.
They could.
They lost their revenue. If they'd had that revenue, they would have put the new roof on.
Right.
That's where George said.
Right.
They apply for lost revenue. We give them the grant. They go with what it means. I mean,
They showed us
would we
the
like-
proof of loss.
Would we like it that they might paint the outside of their building and make it look pretty? Yeah, but if that's not what they want to do, that's not.
If they don't prove the lost revenue, they're not getting the money.
Right,
for
if
it.
they
As
don't
a
prove the
business,
loss.
I can't get ARPA any other way. I'm a business owner. I couldn't apply for ARPA any other way unless I applied as an individual because I had mental health issues that were maybe being met. Well, even then I couldn't apply for it unless I had maybe
You couldn't work.
Unless
With lost revenue.
lost, right.
Because
So
Or
in
because you had to
the
care for
outreach,
somebody.
we have to make very clear to applicants
Yes.
that they've got to, they have to...
Oh, yeah, that's going to be on the, that should be part of the application.
But a Lyman Service Bureau could, or the Learning Center absolutely could apply under the lost revenue rule, and they could also come to us and say, hey, listen, we're going to propose a remedial reading program. I'm just throwing things, right? Because we know that there was problems, and we're seeing this. There's a huge gap in education that occurred during
That's different.
COVID.
Yeah.
So they could apply under the lost revenue, which they'd have to document, and we know they had it, and they also come back with a program. We don't have to approve
I
it.
think that our application process has to be really clear that the economic recovery grants use this application.
Yeah.
And the community initiatives, which would address one of the 11, use either a different application or a different process.
Yeah.
And
Like
so-
community initiatives, that's a good.
Okay.
And
But you can use both.
it can be on.
Some people.
Maybe, but I don't need to show loss,
No, but I'm saying, but there
You'll
are,
have parts you won't have to fill out.
So I think there should be two separate applications,
Yeah.
honestly.
Now,
We haven't voted on these. as
We
well.
need to vote on this before we move on.
The cap of 10,000.
Cap of 10,000.
Any further discussion?
one last thing. Last time, and I think that you were almost moving this direction, was expanding lost revenue into lost opportunity, where I was not able to do these functions because
that would be like a Lions Club who couldn't hold a fundraiser. To me, that falls under lost revenue. Here's what we've made on the last 3 fundraisers. This is what we would have expected to make under this. So that, in my mind, that clearly falls under that.
Right.
yeah.
As a matter of fact, at Board of Finance last night, there was a group, Historical Society mentioned how
Prime example.
they usually have in-house lectures. When they do that, they ask for donations. They didn't have them. They had them on Zoom, and although they asked people to possibly donate, as he said, once the lecture's over, you kind of put that aside and forget to write the check.
That particular group lost a lot of revenue.
Right. And they have projects that they would like to do, and they've asked for some funding for whatever.
Yeah.
But they might be a project. And I think our biggest thing is we're a small town, and the outreach of this application is the biggest thing that we have to do.
Right, and it can't be too confusing.
No?
It can't be too confusing.
So we need to vote on this.
Yep.
Yes.
All in favor?
Okay, you want to restate?
Yeah,
Sure.
what are we voting?
Okay, I make a motion that ARPC adopts a cap of up to $10,000 per applicant under the small business nonprofit lost revenue category.
Second.
Okay. All right, is there any additional discussion on that? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So moved.
Good job.
I think that we need 2 applications, because I could see, perfect example is Olin Children's Learning Center. They're a nonprofit that lost revenue, so they can fill out this quick application, demonstrate their lost revenue. But if they're going to also apply for a program for early childhood education, that's going to be a more complex application. They're going to need to show a budget and then goals and tick off which of the 11 categories they fall under.
I originally didn't agree with you. My thinking has evolved on that, and I would support that, Mary, that we have a George application and basically in all other applications.
Community initiatives.
So maybe we can do, maybe we can do some cut and paste.
Let's hope.
For sure.
Right.
So my question would be, do we let Phil and Dave and George work on the first one for nonprofit, and then have another group starting the other one for community?
Yeah,
or,
I think that's fair.
And then merge what we have.
We got to keep using the same words, because every time nonprofit comes up, it gets confusing.
I'm sorry.
Economic
recovery
and community
initiatives.
So would we work?
Does George have enough, from looking at the draft that you presented, to do it himself and bring?
Well, can we just back up? Did George? I know we went out of order on the agenda. Was George approved at Board of Selectmen? I don't know.
Yes, he was.
Okay.
And it was also approved last night at Board of Finance to move to a town meeting because of the fact he's close to 20,000 cap. We're putting that on the town meeting as well. That we're hiring a consultant to handle the economic recovery grant.
And we're getting an allocation for that, or are we repaying?
The ARPA money could be used for that.
Okay, so
the
basically, is the town upfronting us until, or are we going to start using our ARPA money based on what?
Based on what the town meeting does, then Nicole would have the opportunity.
You create a general ledger for it.
No, maybe.
So, I would say this, the town meeting is the 12th, and
The 12th.
21st.
sorry.
Flip it.
But I think we need to engage George now.
Yeah.
Any bills we see, pull that I can put it under the, lesson miscellaneous, and when it all gets approved, I can take it out of the ARPA money. Because I don't want to give anything that's not approved. We still haven't got town meeting to approve spending any ARPA funding.
Well,
So anything we spent for the Survey Monkey or the postcards and stuff, all of that is under the selectman's office, under townwide communication.
Right.
Because I can't, even though we all say that that's going to be covered in ARPA, we don't have the authority.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
So you'll reimburse that once approved at town meeting?
Right, now I thought the thing in town meeting was going to be an additional appropriation of money, but you're saying no, it's going to be ARPA.
Two. There's two on the agenda, I saw a draft.
Okay.
Ledge Light and George under ARPA.
Okay. Either way, if next week we have to send them $1,000 deposit.
He doesn't want any upfront money.
Then we can put it under selectmen temporarily and I can move it to ARPA.
So,
But I would say move ahead now, because this is these applications.
what my thought was, and I'm glad you're both here, but because of the fact that we know that he's done East Windsor, we know he's done the summers, he's seen our draft, that really, he said it's not going to take much time to put together.
That's what he said.
Ours. So I asked him and Matt, because we said that we wanted to go through the town meeting and Board of Finance, that really I thought within 4 to 5 hours of his time, he could probably have this application up and going. At least a draft to us. That by that time, let's say so what I would like to do with his somewhat contract or agreement of work is that he would break it down in that he would not exceed a certain amount of money on the application part and then put the rest in for his hourly rate afterwards of reviewing applications and processing and do the rest. And that way we're covered, that we didn't go out and just sign on to his contract ahead of Tim would have to sign on to his contract. But it just breaks it. And then once the 21st happens, then we'll be good to go. But I want him to get going.
I agree.
But I do, I know that you've done some of the preliminary work, so I would love it if you would,
Contact him?
well, I'll put you on an email with him.
My question, though, that started this is, if we've already done this work and he's got this expertise, can't he come back to us? Why dilute us? Can't we then, as a group, then can we be working on the application for the other?
Yes.
And let him go. You know, you
What I
valuable on the other part.
What I would like to do on my end, he has enough information to do about 80 or 90% of it. There is some language that was in the East Windsor one that has been revised as of the final rule, and I've already got that sort of called out. So at least one interaction with him to get that language inserted in the thing, or have it in his draft.
You could even do that through email.
Yeah,
Back and forth.
And then on the other with us, because he's
Okay.
got the...
Yeah.
Yes, but
Yep,
I think
fine.
that, honestly, we keep talking about spreading the word and how we're going to do that. It's going to be very confusing if we have two applications that have two different deadlines. I think that they should have the same deadline, because
Absolutely.
we're not going to...
Oh, yeah.
So we're hurrying up with George, but we got to hurry up with the other things, too.
That's
I think to
It
work
has
on
to
a
be
subcommittee
even.
I'm working
for
on
the
a subcommittee.
community initiative.
Community initiative. And I think that...
I'm available at 6 a.m.
But for
I just wanted to move the peanut.
Should we get a third
We
person,
need a
Mark?
timeline on George's contract
Yeah.
as part of the contract.
Right.
Because he specified I need 30 days,
Right.
to gather all of the applications. All right, starting when?
No, so what it is Dennis, is he's going to get the essay up, a draft. We're going to make any changes. Then it's up to us to put the draft online, the application online. Then George is going to go to sleep for a little while, because
He's waiting.
He's going to wait.
Till our
He's not going
deadline.
to be billing. That's our job then, to do the outreach and get it out there to the public.
Right, with the other application.
With the other application. So both applications go live the same day. We start doing outreach. We get it out there. And let's say we give everybody 4 weeks, sorry, 4 weeks to get their
Is
application.
radio silence during those 4 weeks?
Well,
There's nothing to do.
I would suggest that we at least wait until we, get a handful.
That's what he said. He
And-
said that he would get like 10 to 15
At a-
as they come in, start the underwriting, present to us with what he's finding.
Right.
This is completely not allowable. This needs more information. This one is going to get a
And
recommendation.
then you can feed back to the public and say, here's what we're seeing. When you do this,
Well, we can
keep
also
this-
get a beat on what the total dollar amounts are.
Right.
Yes, but
Right.
I predict most of the applications will come in the final 48 hours. Like, we're not, really, that's just...
That's what I said. That's exactly what I said.
Can I also say, I know Cheryl,
Turned
That's how I went through school.
4 hours, but
Cheryl's not on the phone in the game.
No.
But Rick, so I'm thinking of the listing of nonprofits and businesses. Doesn't the assessor keep records of that? Can't we tap into her for her list of what?
if they have real estate or
Yeah.
personal property that
Well, and
they
also the
tax on.
nonprofits have to register with the town.
I think
Every so many years.
State, I didn't realize.
No, you
that
do.
was-
You have to do this quadrennial...
Quadrennial,
exam
yeah.
report that was just due this year.
And I think it just came out,
I
yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
You have to prove that
Pretty-
they're a
pretty
nonprofit for the
intense.
assessment.
Yeah, we have to include our...
So let's
yeah,
reach
that's
out to the
90.
assessor, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that there is a list, they do have a list of businesses.
Yep.
Personally, I wouldn't
Should we
mind
just do it on the
stopping
phone?
in,
Sorry.
because,
That's nothing to do with business.
Exactly, we
because
need to break it up and.
I was in Andy's
Go on
one
foot.
day, and I told him about this committee. He goes, I didn't know anything about this. I was
Yeah,
like,
I've
well,
two or three people I've said,
And I said, well, I'll let you know when the application comes out.
Right.
And
Careful with your wish.
Teddy was the same way. He didn't know anything, and, we can do it through Everbridge, we could do it that way, we can do any mode.
I think that is our next meeting, is discussing our outlook. But right now, I think we
Cheryl will
need
be back.
We
Yeah,
can do a video, we can put that.
I think as far as next steps go, is to hook up with George, get that application going, get the subcommittee going for the other application on a parallel track.
Yep.
And once we get that, I think the next step is exactly that. How do we structure the outreach now that we have this?
Who is on the subcommittee to do the community initiatives application?
Martha and I volunteered. Would anyone else like to?
I don't want to because
You might be applying, yeah.
I'll be happy to.
If I can share with you one that I
That's a
from
trifecta.
another community.
And if there is anything when we're done and agree on the other application with George, I will try to glean from him, if you guys are still working on the application, and pass that along at least.
Well, and we have his Summers and his East Windsor ones, so we
Yeah.
can use
So,
those two as
Right.
a
I do
guidance.
think for that application, that just having written these 11, it would be helpful if you're going to have them check off which of the 11 categories they fall into, that you have the full language of what the category
Yeah,
is.
from the survey.
From the survey, because it
And
is,
clearly stating if you have experienced lost revenue,
Go to the other.
Mary Jo Small.
well,
Oh,
I like it.
lost revenue would not be one of the 11 categories.
Phil, can you just go up and take a picture of each individual
Yeah.
one?
I did.
So that,
Mary did already. Can you email those to us?
Yeah, I'll do it again, too.
Yeah, but Mary, you had them on an angle. I would say go up to each one.
I'll do
Okay.
them all.
Can I read? Oh, look at that.
All right, what else is on our agenda?
I can read it.
but can Suzanne read it? 'Cause she needs a copy.
Getting out of here.
All right.
Before we get into
Oh, look, it's starting to fail.
Okay.
2 questions.
I wasn't done
One,
yet.
oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was doing my thing. Do you want, is one of those things my thing?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Does Tim have enough information for the 21st to answer questions regarding why a George?
No, we have to do, we should be ready to prepare something for that, so we could work on that next week. And I'm happy to present it. I don't know if it's good. Do I present it? Is it okay for me to present to the town meeting? Right?
I'm sure Tim would appreciate that.
Yes, I'll take that on.
there is maybe kind of along the line, there is on the 12th, I was asked to present to the town here on a Saturday. ARPA is one of the items.
The 19th?
Yes, the 19th,
Yes.
excuse me, the 19th, not the 12th, I'm sorry, the 19th. I think less is more with that presentation.
Just to tell them it's an update on what.
Absolutely, and we've got a lot to update them on, but I don't think I'm not going to go into anything as far as off into the weeds.
Yeah. No. Basically, you're going to do almost our summary of the survey, and which we wrote up already.
The
And
fact that
then,
applications are being
and now
completed now,
and these are the 2 buckets, and you should see them out by blank day.
right? Exactly.
And I really want to give George a date, so if it's March 9th today, and I call him this afternoon, what do you think is a viable timeline?
For the
For
deadline.
him to have the application?
30 days from today.
A draft from, I'm not.
Oh, no.
The application.
No, the application, I can work from home and I get my email at home. So if you send me stuff.
Yeah, I know.
So I would say probably for our next meeting.
I was going to say a week.
That's a week, by next.
Our next meeting, we should have,
You invite him to present it?
no, just to be an updated draft. We're going to.
You know what, if he wants to send it to us and he could be on the phone, I don't want to get into mileage and hours if you start, I don't want him
Right.
billing me for an hour.
And-
I didn't say that, but I don't want that to be considered, I'd rather save his time.
That'd be great if you did that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
just do it. I mean, I've got time to look at a couple of annotated drafts.
So let me ask this.
Thumbs up, thumbs down. If I have a problem, I
The
can.
community initiative also going to try to have one by, it's a lot to ask, by next week?
We need to be on the same timeline, so we're going to have a draft at least, if not. more.
It's a draft, it's not going to be perfect, it's going to be a draft. We'll do our best, and Mary's going to send us a copy of one that is good.
Okay, great.
All right.
And I think that Tim will have enough information, I mean, as far as like, I don't think he has to check in with Jack Collins on the contract. I mean, I think it's going to be pretty clear, because that was a question on the agenda.
What will the call of the meeting be with respect to ARPA? I know you've just seen a draft. What are we asking the public to do?
Paul's Road,
Pardon me?
Paul's Road,
Oh, I mean with respect to ARPA.
ARPA approved the $21,622.15 to legislate, and then also to approve up to $20,000 from Mr. Kripta for also ARPA administration.
Do we have to ask the town to accept the 2.1 as a...
That will have to go to a separate meeting because what we're saying is that we would like to just do everything at once for ARPA at one meeting, meaning the bigger picture, to say, we're going to accept it, we're going to take it as a standard allowance, and this is what we're suggest is going to happen with it, as far as...
I guess that's fine. I guess it would seem to me that if we just ask for the 2.1 up front, then the other just...
So my only question is timing. If it has to go to post, I believe Friday, they would like to start posting in newspapers. I don't understand.
So you're saying we have to go back to town meeting then for the 2.1?
I don't. We're questioning whether the town has to accept the 2.1, meaning, hey, thanks for sending it. I don't think that.
I know we do that.
No, that's not what I'm asking. But
I'm sorry.
I mean, that was a good question. No, what I'm asking is, do we say to the community, we've been given 2.1 million under ARPA funds, and the town is taking this as a standard
deduction,
which will allow us to use these funds for general government services. And we do our little display of what we're thinking, and under that includes the allocation for ledge light, for example. I just thought that might be cleaner, but...
You mean sort of a blanket approval?
Yeah.
And as part of our first...
We don't go back again.
And as part of our first expenditures, we'll be spending this and this.
I think only for the fact that they're budgeting, for their budgeting purposes for next year. So they're doing their budget.
Tomorrow.
But also,
Yes.
the meeting, the approval of the 20,000, up to 20,000 for storage.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we were asking them for that, but yet we haven't even asked them
Yeah.
to accept the money and re-spend it.
So do we have to ask the town to accept it, is my question.
That was debatable, because we've
That's, I didn't,
federal grants, we've got stimulus money, we've got government.
No, but you're accepting, I thought that by doing all at one time instead of individually.
so what we really want to say is, are we okay with accepting it as a standard allowance?
Right. The town has this money they've been given. We are going to accept that money as the standard allowance.
And then follow this procedure.
And follow this procedure, period, done. Does that work?
And then George's expenses really fall under general government.
General government services.
Right.
So then we're done.
But didn't we hear that finance and selectmen want to approve the George expense now?
They did already.
They did it only because we were under the gun of trying to get this application going.
So they've done that effectively, but that's not the money. You know what I mean? You have that in a separate fund.
You're asking them to approve two expenditures that they haven't even.
Correct.
No matter what they fall under.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying.
And you haven't even done anything in totality.
Right. So that's exactly what I think. That's what I'm saying is we go and ask, here's $2.1 million.
Yeah, this I think we were hoping to get the legal opinion.
Yeah.
That's why I stuck this under here.
Right. Yeah.
We have an update on that, Martha?
No, I haven't heard from,
Okay, that doesn't
staff.
delay us
Actually,
today. It doesn't delay us today.
He just asked me how I wanted to select woman or select man. So,
Guru, what are you going to say?
What did you want?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too. I would say select woman.
Madam.
I said select woman. See, it's the month of the woman, isn't it?
That's right, International
Women's Month. I'm going that way. All right, so I have not heard back from Michael Cleary or Jack on any of the infrastructure, water, sewer questions that we had. I have not heard anything on that, and I will push on that. tonight, I will send another email. Say, I really need this by next week. Or, yeah, now we're getting closer, okay?
Because one of the questions was, can we do this? Can we do it in a general way instead of going for every single thing?
Right.
And he was gonna tell us if that would qualify, and if we could do it, then we do that blanket statement. We don't even put George or anybody else on there.
Right.
So those are two separate opinions, right? One is the specific to the infrastructure one that we posed to him, and then that was a separate one on whether, right, yeah,
Right.
separate.
And
Well, I didn't send that to Jack, though. For some reason, I thought you were gonna be the go-between Jack, so I didn't send that.
I probably, maybe it fell off my.
It was on that big list. I'm sure you did it.
How about if, we go to, maybe you and I can just stop in with Tim and say,
call Jack if you want.
I could.
I just bought them yesterday.
And the reason why I
But the
think,
problem is I want Tim to agree that let's put it on now.
right,
So I kind of put
there's
it
that.
on the hook to doing what we hopefully.
And then I can, because I told Tim I was coming to him right after this
Yep.
meeting, because if there were any changes that had to be made to the town meeting, that we could. So I just think that we put it in now and do that. And I don't think,
I really hope that works out, because it also helps Nicole when she gets to the point, when we have an April report that's due. You might probably be able to manage that,
that's true.
you yourself and yourself.
The pay the cost for any of the survey on that. I can't put the George thing on that unless we get an approval to spend the ARPA money.
Right.
Right? Those will all have to go under general budget.
But when you get to the point where you have to report out, we'll be allowed, you can contract out what you might need to do your piece of the reporting piece. Even if we take it as a 2.1, it's pretty significant for one person.
I mean, I can request like $100,000 to help me finance something.
Well, you have to come to the
There we go.
apply.
That bucket at 10, let's cross that zero.
You know that 2.1 part, you're the point?
Yeah, I hope we can absorb all of the more administrative costs other places in their budget, so that most of the money will be out and not for that stuff.
Right. So that would make it cleaner.
Yeah, it would be a home run if we could.
When we first started, I had a number. I thought if we could come under $100,000 for administrative expenses, we would be doing well. And that was before the standard allowance came in. I think we will be well under that.
Yeah.
Even with an aggressive promotion for the rollout, I mean, we'll be well under that, which is great.
I just would like to see us get this.
If it has to be paid for out of our.
Yeah, I would like to see us get in a posture that gets the 2.1 wheels up.
Yeah.
You know, we can get the 2.1 wheels up at a town meeting rather than picking the pieces parts apart.
Yeah, I don't know the procedural aspects of that, like you guys do.
And your path is clear. It's now you can start spending that, using that money, no longer putting it in protection.
Now,
Way to do that.
now, you want to go on record right now and let us know that that's.
Well, adjourn your meeting so we can go talk all the time.
All right. They got my motion, if there's anything else.
so next week, let's just be clear, what's next week? So that Suzanne can kind of put that on the minute.
Application
Both
for
applications.
economic
Both
recovery.
applications
Promotion,
And promotion.
and promotion.
Promotion,
communication, whatever we want to call
Okay.
it.
Outreach.
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 Okay.
Mary, make sure we stay on track and use the right terms.
No, it's just.
I know, I understand, I know. I use them sometimes to get myself in trouble, so I know they matter.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay,
All in favor? Oh, we didn't do public comment.
it is 1:30.
Is there any public?
Any public comment?
Comment.
Everybody on the phone.
Any people on the phone?
Who am I
All right,
sending these photos
we're hanging up.
Who am I sending these photos to?
I would like